Jason's eyes fluttered open to darkness. His head throbbed, his body screamed in pain, and a sharp metallic scent filled his nostrils. Blood, his own. He tried to move, but thick restraints bound his wrists and ankles to a cold steel chair. The air around him was sterile, humming with the low buzz of machines. A single overhead light flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the room. Jason blinked against the sudden brightness, his vision adjusting to the sleek, high-tech surroundings. This wasn't some rundown basement. It was something far worse, a prison designed for someone like him. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. A tall, shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. The voice that followed was deep, controlled, laced with amusement. "You should have stayed out of this, Statham." Jason lifted his head, his jaw tightening. The man standing before him was dressed in a dark suit, his presence radiating authority. His face was calm, calculating, but his eyes carried a warning, a predator sizing up its prey. Jason didn't speak. He wouldn't give him the satisfaction. The man smirked. "Still playing the tough guy, huh?" He reached into his pocket and pressed a button on a small remote. A monitor on the far wall flickered to life. Jason's stomach clenched. The screen showed live surveillance footage of Olivia and Marcus. Olivia was sitting in a dimly lit room, staring at a laptop, unaware of the danger closing in. Marcus, on the other hand, was outside, speaking with someone, his movements tense, cautious. Then, from the corner of the screen, a black SUV slowly pulled up behind him. Jason's hands balled into fists against his restraints. "They're next," the man said casually, watching Jason's reaction. "You see, Jason, you thought you were exposing some corrupt HOA president. Cute. But this is much bigger than you. You've been a minor inconvenience, until now." Jason forced himself to stay calm. He had to analyze, memorize, find a way out. His eyes flickered around the room. Reinforced steel walls, no windows. A single exit door with a biometric lock. 2 armed guards stood near it, their posture relaxed but alert. They weren't expecting him to fight back. Not yet. The man stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Do you know why you're still breathing?" Jason exhaled slowly, controlling his rage. "Because you like to hear yourself talk." The man chuckled, shaking his head. "Because I need you to understand what's coming. You poked a bear, Jason, and now the bear is very, very angry." He leaned in slightly. "You're not walking away from this. You're not exposing anyone else, and you're certainly not saving them." He gestured toward the monitor. "But don't worry, they won't have to suffer for long." Jason's jaw clenched. Every muscle in his body screamed for action, but he forced himself to remain still. He needed a plan. The man straightened, adjusting his cufflinks. "I'll let you sit with that for a while." He turned to the guards. "Keep him alive, for now." As the man exited the room, the door sealed shut behind him with a mechanical hiss. Jason exhaled through gritted teeth. The bindings on his wrists and ankles were tight, but not unbreakable. His head still pounded, but his mind was clear now. They had made a mistake. They hadn't killed him when they had the chance. Olivia sat in the dimly lit apartment, her laptop screen the only source of light. The last files Jason had uncovered were scattered across her screen, bank statements, coded messages, names that led nowhere. But she knew Jason. He wouldn't have risked everything if there wasn't something big buried in this mess. She rubbed her temples. Jason was not dead. He couldn't be. The news reports had declared him missing after the explosion, but Olivia refused to accept it. Jason had survived worse. She just had to prove it. A sudden knock on the door made her tense. Her fingers hovered over the gun she kept beside her laptop. "It's me," Marcus's voice came through. She let him in, locking the door behind him. He was out of breath, his hoodie damp from the rain. "I found something," he said, pulling out a crumpled paper. "There's a guy, ex-FBI, name's Carter Mills. He used to work with the same people Jason was investigating. If anyone knows where Jason is, it's him." Olivia took the paper, scanning the address. "Where is he now?" Marcus hesitated. Off the grid, but I found someone who might know. I'm meeting them in an hour. Olivia's gut clenched. Alone? Marcus gave her a look. We don't have a choice. She wanted to argue, but he was right. Every minute wasted was a minute Jason was in danger. She nodded. Be careful. Marcus waited in a desolate parking lot, rain drizzling lightly as he checked his phone. No messages, no updates. His contact was late. Then, headlights cut through the dark. A sleek black SUV rolled up, not his contact's car. Marcus stiffened. His instincts screamed at him. Walk away! Run! Something's off, but it was too late. The SUV's window rolled down slightly. A voice, calm and controlled, spoke from inside. You should stop looking for Jason Statham. Marcus took a step back. Who are you? No response. The driver's door opened, and a man in a dark suit stepped out. You were warned. Marcus barely had time to react before another car screeched to a stop behind him. They weren't here to talk. They were here to silence him. Jason kept his breathing slow and steady, his body limp against the cold metal chair. The restraints dug into his wrists, and every muscle in his body screamed from the beatings he had endured. But he didn't flinch. He had to convince them he was broken. A guard stood nearby, shifting his weight lazily. Two others were by the door, chatting in low voices. Jason memorized their positions, their movements. He had one shot. The first guard stepped closer, nudging Jason's shoulder. Still out? Jason's moment came. In a flash, he yanked his arms forward, snapping the loose restraint free. His left hand shot up, slamming into the guard's throat. A choked gasp, then silence. Jason grabbed the man's gun, turned, and fired. One shot, headshot. The second guard collapsed. The third guard barely had time to react. Jason lunged, twisting the gun from his grip and delivering a bone-crushing elbow to his jaw. The man crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Alarms blared. They knew he was loose. Jason moved fast. He tore the radio from a fallen guard's vest, listening in. Subject escaped. Lock down all exits. He had to move now. Jason yanked a phone from a dead guard's pocket and dialed the only number that mattered. Olivia picked up. Jason. Her voice was a mixture of shock and relief. No time, Jason panted. They're coming for you next. Silence. Then Olivia's sharp intake of breath. Get out, now! The line cut. Jason tossed the phone and grabbed a gun. He wasn't done yet. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter as he weaved through traffic, eyes darting to the rearview mirror. The black SUV had been following them for too long. Something's wrong, he muttered. Olivia sat beside him, laptop open, frantically decoding the last files Jason had uncovered. Just a few more minutes, she whispered, fingers flying over the keyboard. Marcus's gut told him they didn't have minutes. He took a sudden turn onto a quieter street, hoping to lose them. Then, boom! The SUV slammed into their back bumper, the force sending their car skidding sideways. Hold on, Marcus shouted. Tires screeched as he fought to regain control, but the SUV rammed them again. The laptop flew from Olivia's hands, hitting the dashboard. She barely had time to react before crash. Their car slammed into a parked truck. The airbag exploded in Marcus's face. Olivia's head snapped back against the seat, dazed but still alive. The SUV's doors flew open, armed men moving fast. Marcus groaned, shaking off the dizziness. He reached for the glove compartment, his gun. Too late. Gunfire erupted. Marcus jerked as a bullet tore through his shoulder. Marcus! Olivia screamed. Ignoring the pain, Marcus fired back. One shot. Two. A thug collapsed, but the others kept coming. Olivia scrambled out of the car, dragging Marcus with her. We gotta move, she yelled, heart pounding. Bullets ricocheted off the car as they staggered into a narrow alley. No way out. One of the gunmen raised his weapon tires, screeched. A car sped into the alley at full speed, headlights blinding their attackers. The vehicle slid to a stop. The driver's door swung open. Jason, gun drawn, eyes burning with fury. They should have killed me when they had the chance. Jason's knuckles were still raw, blood dripping from a fresh wound as he gripped the gun tighter. The SUV lay wrecked behind him, its occupants either dead or scattered. Olivia was pressing a cloth against Marcus's wound, but Jason barely registered their voices. His eyes were fixed ahead, on the black limousine that had just pulled up. The back door swung open and he stepped out. Tailored suit, polished shoes, a presence so cold it made the air feel heavier. Jason had seen his face on TV 100 times. A man who preached about justice, who stood in front of cameras claiming to fight corruption. And now here he was, standing in the middle of a crime scene, completely unfazed. Jason raised his gun. "You're behind this." Calloway chuckled, slow and measured. "Oh, Jason, you still think this is about some HOA scandal? Some dirty cops? You have no idea how deep this goes." Jason's trigger finger twitched. "I know enough to put you in the ground." The senator's bodyguard stepped forward, weapons raised. Calloway lifted a hand, stopping them. His confidence was infuriating. He took a slow step forward, tilting his head. "You think you've been fighting the system, but you've barely scratched the surface. The judges, the police, the media. You exposed their corruption, sure. But they were just pieces on the board. I own the board." Jason clenched his jaw. He'd fought killers before, men who thrived on chaos, on blood. But this was power. Real power. Calloway smiled like he could hear Jason's thoughts. "You're an impressive man, Statham. Resourceful. Dangerous. But here's the thing." He pulled a phone from his pocket and turned the screen toward Jason. A live video feed played. A sniper's scope, a red dot, centered on Olivia's head. Jason's heart slammed into his ribs. Olivia froze. Marcus tried to shift, but he was too weak. Calloway's voice was silk. "Put the gun down, now." Jason's grip tightened, then slowly he lowered his weapon. Calloway smirked. "Good boy. See, Jason? You're predictable. Always playing the hero. And that's why you'll lose." Jason's rage boiled under his skin. His muscles screamed to do something. But one wrong move and Olivia was gone. Calloway stepped even closer, voice dropping lower. "This isn't a fight you can win. Not with your fists, not with your gun. You took something from me, Jason. And now I'm going to take everything from you." A siren wailed in the distance. Calloway sighed, as if inconvenienced. "I'd love to stay and watch you suffer, but I have a city to run." He turned to leave. Jason's voice was cold. "Run all you want. This ends with you." Calloway stopped just for a second, then laughed softly. "No, Jason. It ends with you." The limousine door closed, and just like that, he was gone. Jason stood in the street, fists shaking, jaw clenched. This wasn't over. Not even close. The flickering neon signs of a rundown motel cast eerie shadows over Jason's face as he stared at the television screen. His knuckles were still bruised, his muscles aching from the last fight, but none of it compared to the weight in his chest as he watched the broadcast. "Jason Statham is an enemy of the state." Senator Richard Calloway's voice was smooth, his expression carefully rehearsed as he stood behind a podium, flanked by law enforcement officials. His tone carried just the right amount of sorrow, just enough fury to convince the world. "This man has committed heinous crimes against our country. He is responsible for multiple murders, acts of terrorism, and attacks on our justice system. He is dangerous, armed, and must be brought to justice at any cost." Jason's grip tightened around the remote. Olivia muttered under her breath, "He's setting you up." Marcus, still weak from his gunshot wound, exhaled sharply. "He's not just setting him up. He's making sure every bounty hunter, ex-soldier, and desperate lunatic with a gun comes after him." As if on cue, the next segment of the broadcast began. A red banner flashed across the bottom of the screen. "Bounty, $10 million. A grainy image of Jason filled the screen, surveillance footage from years ago. Underneath, the words burned into his mind. Wanted, dead or alive. Jason barely blinked. He had expected Calloway to retaliate, but this was a death sentence. Marcus pushed himself up with a wince. You know what 10 million does to people, Jason? That's cartel money, war criminal money. You won't just have cops after you. You'll have ex-military, assassins, mercenaries, even people you thought were friends. Jason's jaw clenched. Olivia turned to him. We need to get you out of the city. Jason shook his head. No, running won't fix this. Olivia's voice rose. Then what? You want to take on the entire world? You think you can survive every bounty hunter, every corrupt cop, every lunatic with a gun? Jason didn't answer. He was already thinking ahead. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was war. A loud thud against the motel door made them all freeze. Marcus grabbed his gun despite his injuries. Olivia reached for her knife. Jason locked eyes with them, then moved silently to the peephole. Outside, a figure stood in the dim parking lot, barely visible under the flickering lights, a shadow among shadows. Jason's gut told him exactly what was happening. The hunt had already begun. The night was alive with tension, the air thick with the promise of blood. Jason tightened the straps on his tactical vest, his movements methodical, controlled. Every weapon he secured was a declaration. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was war. Olivia double-checked her laptop, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she accessed encrypted files stolen from Calloway's private servers. This is it, she murmured. The proof we need, corruption, murders, human trafficking, everything. Marcus, still favoring his injured side, loaded fresh rounds into his rifle. So we take this public? Jason snapped the magazine into his pistol. No. His eyes were cold, unforgiving. We take him down first. Outside, the distant hum of engines cut through the silence. They had arrived. The kill squad. Black SUVs screeched to a stop outside the abandoned warehouse where Jason and his team had set up their final stand. Armed men spilled out, dressed in military-grade gear, moving with deadly precision. Jason took a deep breath, gripping his weapon. They should have killed me when they had the chance. Then hell erupted. Gunfire tore through the night as Jason, Olivia, and Marcus unleashed everything they had. Bullets shattered concrete, sparks flew from ricocheting rounds, and bodies dropped in brutal succession. Jason moved like a phantom, weaving through cover, taking down enemies with ruthless efficiency. He disarmed one attacker, using his own knife to slash through body armor. Another came at him with a shotgun. Jason ducked low, twisted the weapon away, and put 2 rounds in his chest. Across the battlefield, Olivia took cover behind rusted machinery, firing calculated shots while keeping her laptop safe. The upload was at 78%. Marcus provided covering fire, gritting his teeth through the pain. How many more? Jason slammed a fresh clip into his pistol. Too many. Then, the roar of an approaching helicopter. A spotlight blazed down, pinning Jason in place as a voice echoed through the battlefield. Enough. Senator Calloway stepped out of the shadows, flanked by more guards. A smug grin curled his lips. You actually thought you could win? Jason glared at him. I don't think, Calloway. I know. Behind him, Olivia whispered, Upload at 95%. Calloway chuckled. Look around you, Statham. You're outnumbered, outgunned. You're a wanted man, and after tonight, you'll be nothing but a memory. Jason exhaled, rolling his shoulders. Then let's make tonight unforgettable. With that, he launched into the final fight. A brutal, bone-crunching brawl erupted as Jason tore through the last wave of enemies. Calloway's guards fought hard, but Jason fought harder. Every strike was fueled by fury, every bullet a message. He wasn't going down without taking them with him. In the chaos, Olivia gasped, Upload complete! Somewhere in the world, the truth was being exposed. Calloway saw it in real time. The news alerts, the leaked files, the video proof of his crimes. His face paled. Jason smirked. Checkmate. Sirens wailed in the distance. The tides had turned. But Jason wasn't done. With one last look at Calloway, a promise of vengeance in his eyes, Jason turned and disappeared into the darkness. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning.